sexual.
But I'm a Cheerleader was meant to be the gay version of Clueless, with the twist of John Waters' camp, a look inspired by Barbie meets Tim Burton, and an unlikely role for RuPaul.
I myself was once a gay.
It's the story of a cheerleader sent to an ex-gay conversion camp where things quickly go off the rails.
I'm Graham, and I like girls a lot.
And behind the scenes, things went off the rails during filming too, with protests from neighbors, destroyed sets, and a concept that even the director doubted.
There's a million reasons it shouldn't have been made. There's a million reasons why it could have fallen apart.
It's a film that divided critics and audiences alike, and went on to become an international camp classic. But what might seem like an outrageous neon fantasy is based on an actual history of snake oil, scams, and scandals.
I lived a gay life and came out straight.
It was lie after lie after lie after lie.
And a real-life menace that seemed like it was about to die out, but now, 25 years later, is ready to rise from the grave.
Now, who's ready to have some fun?
Our story starts with the star of But I'm a Cheerleader, Natasha Lyonne. She got her start as an actor on shows like Pee-wee's Playhouse and toy commercials.
Dana, you look so pretty.
She looks happy on camera, but off camera, things weren't great.
I guess, my parents, I want to say they were eccentrics, but they were just alcoholics.
Okay.
And,
her parents saw this cute, talented kid as a paycheck to exploit.
less of a stage mom, more of like a stage nut job.
When she was 8, the family moved abroad for a couple of years, what Natasha thought was a fun adventure, but years later realized was tax evasion. And her well-being was the last thing on her parents' minds. When she was in her teens, her mother asked,
And like, when are you going to get a boob job so you can work? She was like, it would even you out because you got that ass. I was like, well, thanks. And,
Oh my God.
yeah.
She recalled that she spent a lot of time trying to please roomfuls of executives, trying so hard to fit in. And as she got into her teens, she realized that she really wanted to spend her time behind the camera to make her own movies and shows. At that point, she was appearing in major films: Dennis the Menace, American Pie, a Woody Allen musical.
Well, there's no way I'm getting married till I'm 35 and I've lived, and then I'll probably move in with a woman.
And with the money that she made, she was able to buy her own place, get away from her parents, and give film school a shot when she was 16. But as soon as she got there, she realized, from her years in the industry, she knew more about movies than most of the older students.
And I said, if you think I'm going to pay to hang out with these teenagers and talk about Apocalypse Now, if you haven't seen Apocalypse Now by this age, why are you in film school, honey?
So she dropped out, and when studios came calling, she turned them down.
You were the first person to get offered Buffy the Vampire
Well, when the
Slayer.
WB first started, they asked me to do any of the shows. So Dawson's Creek and Buffy.
What she was looking for were projects that were personal, artsy, with an edge. And around 1998, she went to visit her friend, the actress Clea Duvall, in San Francisco. As they drove around the city, going up and down the hills, Natasha was so nervous that she couldn't bring herself to look out the windows. So she just stared down at the floor. And that's where she saw a script just lying there called But I'm a Cheerleader.
And I was like, any parts for me? I need a job. She was like, I guess you could play the cheerleader if you wanted. Let me ask Jamie.
Jamie was Jamie Babbitt, the director. She agreed to meet with Natasha, let her audition for the lead role, a perky, bubbly, innocent cheerleader. And when Natasha showed up...
You showed up, you were wearing fishnets, your platform boots, a leather mini skirt, a ripped black shirt. I was like, I mean, this girl is so wrong for the part.
Jamie had plenty of reasons to be protective of this project. She had a lot riding on the film, personally and professionally. Jamie was a theater kid from Ohio who'd come out as a lesbian a few years earlier.
I remember when I first came out to my mother and I said, Mom, I'm gay. And she said, but you were never good at sports.
She'd moved out to LA to be with her girlfriend, and after working in some low-level jobs on indie films, Jamie had just snagged a job on a high-profile film, The Game. She was able to join the crew union. But that wasn't what she wanted to do forever. Like Natasha, she wanted to make her own projects. Her girlfriend suggested that she make some short films on the side. And Jamie mentioned the idea to a friend.
So Clea and I became friends because she was giving me free coffee when she was a barista at Buzz Coffee. I hope you don't get in trouble now, Clea, for saying that.
No, I mean, it was like a real lesbian hub where I was giving all the ladies free coffee. It was well known.
I was thought Clea was a total James Dean, so hot and someone needed to show the world how hot she was, and it was going to be me.
Jamie and Clea made a short together called Sleeping Beauties. It's a very sweet story about a mom telling her daughter a lesbian fairy tale with no Prince Charming.
So, why don't you give me a call sometime?
The short played at Sundance, and it caught the attention of a finance industry executive named Michael Burns. He'd been working for Prudential in Los Angeles, but like Jamie and Natasha, what Michael really wanted was to make movies. Not in a creative role, but to use his financial background to help filmmakers get funding for their projects. He told Jamie he loved her short, and if she wanted to make a feature, he'd help her get money together to do it. It was an amazing opportunity. Now, she just had to come up with a movie to make. And she found some inspiration in a newspaper article about ex-gay camps. Jamie was horrified by the subject matter, but an idea started to take shape.
Sort of trying to spread the message of how evil these places are and how they make you hate yourself even more than before you went in. And I'm really interested in the theme of repression. It's fascinating to me.
Pray away the gay camps, a heavy topic that most directors would treat with gravity and seriousness. But
in the 90s, there were a lot of kind of dark and depressing movies about being a queer woman. And I, as someone who was in their mid-20s at the time, I just felt a need to tell a kind of gay Clueless.
Clueless was a teen comedy from about 4 years earlier. It was a huge hit. It was light and fun and silly, but it also had a lot of heart.
May I please remind you that it does not say RSVP on the Statue of Liberty.
So Jamie went back to the finance guy and she told him,
I wanted to make a movie about queer joy.
And despite the serious subject matter...
And he was like, oh, well, great. That's great.
He told her if she could get a plan together for the film, he could get her $500,000 to make it. But as the film moved from just a concept to a real thing, a lot of challenges became apparent. For one thing, as Jamie was getting her plan together, she got a call from someone at DreamWorks offering a job as a script supervisor on a major movie, American Beauty. After a lot of low-paying indie gigs, this was a huge opportunity to work on a film that had major stars with support from Steven Spielberg. In contrast, because of how union rules worked back then, directing an independent film might mean she'd have to resign from the crew union that she'd only just been able to join. It was a huge risk for her career. And it wasn't just about her career at this point. She'd asked some close friends if they could help with set design and costumes. Those friends had worked on other projects, but never at this scale.
And me, Alex, and Rachel, it was all of our first times being the head of our department. And so we wanted to prove that we had it. So Alex sewed all those costumes herself.
So now the pressure was on, not just to make this a success for Jamie's career, but to help out her friends too. Plus, they had very little money to pull this off. Michael, the finance guy, was able to get them $500,000, which might sound like a lot, but in the 90s, that was still pretty low for a feature film, even in indie. It wasn't impossible. Clerks was made for about $28,000. Welcome to the Dollhouse cost about $1 million. But My Own Private Idaho was $2.5 million. Pulp Fiction cost $8 million plus another $10 million just for marketing. Boogie Nights cost $15 million. Making a movie for under $1 million meant they were going to have to pinch every penny. And as a sign of just how inexpensive they had to be, one of the credits on the film is hot gluer. And when you look at some of the sets, you can tell there's a lot of hot glue holding them together. But maybe the biggest challenge was the subject matter. It was the late 90s. Gay films had a limited audience. So as a way for Jamie to raise her profile and get better work, it was a big gamble. Plus, there was the risk of being associated with gay projects. At the time, the prevailing wisdom was that audiences would reject actors associated with anything queer. For context, Sean Hayes on Will and Grace was still being advised to stay in the closet. And there were even people on But I'm a Cheerleader who were afraid about what it could do for their careers, including Clea Duvall.
And at the time, she was closeted. And I was like, I'm doing a gay movie with you. And she was like, well, I can't be out. And I was like, well, okay, but you can still do the movie, right?
So Jamie was putting her career on the line and getting her friends committed to a project that was personally important to all of them, but could easily be a huge bomb. And that's the minefield that Natasha Lyonne was walking into when she asked to audition. Jamie didn't think Natasha was right for the part of the perky lesbian cheerleader, but she agreed to meet.
I flew to New York and we met at a coffee shop in the East Village.
No way. Stop right there, Jamie, because I have no memory of this happening.
No.
This is all news to me.
No, but yeah, there was a coffee shop meeting.
You learn something new every day.
And Natasha knew she had a lot to prove. By this point, the project had attracted some buzz among other up-and-coming teen actors. Rashida Jones, Rosario Dawson, James Franco for one of the male leads. And Natasha knew she was coming off all wrong.
I think because I'm such a tough guy. And so then I was like, no, I'm Megan. And like, you know, I cheer and I dance and it's basically just a Charles Bush impression.
She's talking about Charles Bush, who played a lot of innocent ingenue roles.
Darling daughter, you sound like a square from Squaresville.
And who Natasha would go on to work with just a few years later.
Square to you, because I don't sleep around with every delivery boy and valet parking attendant.
Channeling that Charles Bush energy made a good impression.
We talked and you were just like, you're so charming and smart, Natasha. And I was like, she's a really good actress. She's just gonna have to act.
Gradually, more cast came on board. From another indie gay film, Heavenly Creatures, Melanie Lynskey. Michelle Williams, a major teen star, wanted to be in the film so much she arranged a weekend off from Dawson's Creek so she could shoot a few scenes.
It's true.
And for the part of a macho wrestler, they cast 24-year-old Dante Bosco. A former breakdancer from a Bay Area crew called the Street Freaks, Dante had a breakout role in Hook and would go on to be Zuko and Jake Long, although Jamie was a little worried about him.
I was a huge fan of yours from Hook, and I really wanted you to play the part, but I just wanted to be sure that you were not going to freak out about having to make out with a guy. And
yeah, I do remember that.
So I
was appalled. I was appalled.
Dante's first gay kiss was indeed a learning experience for him. It didn't go at all how he expected, and we don't have time for that whole story here, but I'm posting a bonus video on Patreon with that story and lots more. That's at patreon.com/mattbaum. And unfortunately, not everyone who wanted to do the film was able to do it. For the part of the stern head of the ex-gay camp, Jamie reached out to B. Arthur.
And she said, I love this project. The script is fantastic. I cannot do it, but I just wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed reading it.
Disappointing. But to fill that role, they landed another huge get. Kathy Moriarty, who'd been nominated for an Oscar for Raging Bull.
Look, Jake, I got a lawyer, we're getting a divorce, and I'm getting custody of the kids.
And rounding out the cast.
When I met with Natasha, when she was like, oh, I like the script. Who's going to be my parents? And I said, oh, Bud Cort and Mink Stoll. And she was like, oh, I'm doing this movie. I'm doing it.
Bud Cort was Harold in the cult classic Harold and Maude. And Mink Stoll bestowed the film with an underground prestige.
Tell your mother I hate her! Tell your mother I hate you!
Camp royalty. And they weren't the only campy presence.
RuPaul submitted himself for the part. And at the time, Ru hadn't really been seen out of drag.
At that point, Ru was a pop star who mostly played drag roles.
And girl, you better work.
But here,
I play Mike, who's a counselor here at True Directions, or as we like to call it, True Erections. It's interesting working with all the kids on the movie because they're early 20s or late teens or whatever like that, so it's fun to corrupt their minds.
It was all coming together, and by December of 1998, they were ready to start filming. So, what's in the movie? Well, before the script was even written, Jamie had done a lot of research into ex-gay camps in real life. Sometimes what the film shows is ridiculous and elevated, but other times it's the reality that's more absurd. The film starts with Megan, a typical teenage cheerleader whose interest in boys is tepid. Her friends and family have noticed, and they stage an intervention.
Lately, we've become concerned about certain behaviors.
Honey, we think you're a
Lesbian.
And as proof of her lesbianhood,
You've been trying to make us eat this tofu.
In diet, watch for a switch to vegetarianism.
now Megan is indeed a lesbian. There is plenty of evidence. But most of the proof that they cite is just based on stereotypes. And there is a long history of people doing exactly that, going back over 100 years. Supposed experts claimed you could identify a lesbian by looking for females wearing their hair short, or opera singers who appear in male attire. Parents were warned about telltale signs of homosexual sons, an interest in embroidery, or hosting tea parties. Anyone acting out of step with their gender was suspect. to the point that there were pop songs about it.
Masculine women, feminine men, which is a rooster, which is a hen? It's hard to tell them apart today.
That idea that you can spot a homosexual by studying their hobbies continued all the way up to the 90s. One of the worst practitioners was a doctor named Joseph Nicolosi, who said you could identify gay boys by looking for sensitive, artistic types. Now, he publicly denied that he said that.
I didn't say artistic.
Here.
But here's one of his talks.
And we have the temperamentally shy, timid, introverted, artistic, imaginative son.
So in But I'm a Cheerleader, that's all the proof that Megan's family needs. They send her to a conversion camp where they treat homosexuality like it's a problem.
I don't think it's unnatural.
Aha! You see, you don't even think it's wrong. Until you admit your sickness, you will wear these.
It's something that needs to be fixed.
I thought everybody had those thoughts. I just want to be normal.
Then you admit you're not normal.
And that has a long historical basis too. Going back to the 1800s, doctors called it a weakened state of the brain. Over time, as our understanding of sexuality improved, real doctors came to understand that's simply not the case. But ex-gay practitioners never moved on. Even into the 90s, one of the leaders of the ex-gay movement was still calling homosexuality a neurotic adaptation and a mysterious malady. Here's Joseph Nicolosi talking to a patient even more bluntly.
I'm looking at you. How does it feel to be broken as a baby?
Now, if that doesn't sound right, it's because it's not. Homosexuality hasn't been considered a mental illness for over 50 years, and every single medical organization in the world agrees with what the World Psychiatric Association has said. Any intervention purporting to treat something that is not a disorder is wholly unethical. So in the film, the longer that Megan stays at the camp, the sillier the treatment gets. She has to participate in activities where all the campers have to come up with ridiculous reasons they became gay.
Too many locker room showers with the varsity team.
My mother got married in pants.
I was born in France.
That's got a long historical basis too. 100 years ago, some scientists said that homosexuality was caused by jerking off too much. By the 2000s, that had changed slightly, claiming that gays were simply jerking off incorrectly, with proper techniques outlined in an ex-gay manifesto entitled Growth into Manhood. Others simply blame the Freemasons.
Freemasons run the country!
Ugh. But for all this talk about what causes homosexuals, nobody's asking what caused the heterosexuals. There's just an assumption that straight's the default because it's more common. So, in the film, once they think they've identified the causes, the camp brings the families together for a group therapy session, which is really just a chance to make even more people miserable by spreading the blame around.
Your father was emasculated, your mother was domineering.
Well, not exactly.
You have no respect for men because you don't respect your father.
That's based on historical fact, too. Lots of doctors used to say that distant dads and overbearing moms created homosexual kids. But one of my favorite primitive theories was from a crackpot doctor named Edmund Burglar. He said that mothers made their infant sons gay by taking away their breasts too early, which would make the boys angry at breasts in general, and then the boys would notice that butts resemble breasts, which would create an irresistible desire for spanking. I don't know what was going on in Edmund Burglar's personal life, but if anybody needs therapy in this situation, I don't think it's the homosexuals. But blaming parents for making kids gay continued as a fringe theory into the 90s. Here's an ex-gay leader named Richard Cohen demonstrating his technique of curing homosexuals.
Dad! 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 Where were you?
Cohen also claimed that the ghosts of ancestors could make you gay, really going back into history with the parental blame there. So, is there any evidence that the actions of a parent can affect a kid's sexual orientation? Well, no, absolutely none. A group session like this that you see in the film isn't real therapy. It's just a way to make parents feel like they did something wrong, making more people miserable for absolutely no reason. So after the made-up diagnoses, the made-up causes, the made-up therapy, what's next? Made-up cures. The camp counselors force Megan and the other teens into a bunch of straightening out rituals. Girls doing makeup, boys doing car stuff.
Okay, who wants to go down with me?
They've got flashcards with gender roles. Here's Jamie Babbitt again.
I also felt like it was important to poke fun at just the ridiculous concept that if you make
people more masculine or more feminine, that somehow is going to affect whether they're gay or not.
In real life, there is a long record of deranged cures for homosexuality. 100 years ago, doctors said that exercise would eliminate same-sex attraction, because as we all know, gay men hate going to the gym.
Guy, a homosexual? Please, he lifts weights constantly.
One doctor said that riding more bikes would do the trick. And if that didn't work, you could make gays more masculine by implanting monkey testicles.
The drug, it's made from monkey cum.
As crazy as that sounds, similar ideas persisted into the 2000s.
They taught us to wear makeup, and the guys would go play football. But it will give you another way of connecting with the guys.
Healers claimed that they could make boys straight by training them to be cowboys. One self-proclaimed expert in homosexuality, George Riekers, said that gays could be cured by spending more time playing ball. Riekers also said parents should keep a literal scorecard of their kids' gender-appropriate behavior and award them points and physical tokens as a present. Joseph Nicolosi expressed support for semen drinking rituals. He said, "It's not sexual, it's just emotional bonding." So many ex-gay cures involve patients doing whatever their counselors think is the most in line with their gender's behavior. But what they all miss is that behavior and mannerisms and hobbies don't control who you're attracted to. If anything, all this play acting of extreme, exaggerated gender stereotypes is basically drag. So it makes sense that the camp counselor is played by RuPaul. Another supposed cure in the film?
When you have inappropriate fantasies about girls, you shock yourself with this shocker.
Now, aversion therapy can be a real thing. In some settings, it can help deter substance abuse. But no real doctor believes that jolting yourself can change your sexuality. And the UN has condemned forced psychiatric treatment, including electrical shocks, as a form of torture. But just as with other treatments shown in the film, there's a long history of electricity being used to treat homosexuality, often in much weirder ways. Back in the 1880s, a doctor named George Miller Beard said that urban life could make people gay, but he could fix it with the machine called a disintegrator. Basically, just a battery and some tinfoil, a weak radio transmitter. Now, you'll be shocked to hear it didn't work. And the wands don't work in the movie either. But the longer the characters stay at the camp, the more aggressive the practices become, leading up to a moment when they're forced to engage in simulated straight sex. The idea is that practicing straight acts will turn you straight. Now, I wish that idea didn't have a historical basis, but 100 years ago, a doctor named Albert von Schrenck-Notzing decided to treat a gay patient by hypnotizing him, sending him to a brothel, and then after he had sex, on his 45th try, declared him cured. And all the way up to the 90s and the 2000s, a lot of ex-gays were very vocal about how straight sex had cured them.
I lived a gay life and came out straight. I love my wife. We have a great physical relationship, and wouldn't be interested in a guy.
One of the most prominent were a couple named John and Ann Polk. They were constantly on talk shows, going on about their very heterosexual marriage. But then, and you're never going to believe this, John was photographed leaving a gay bar. At the time, he said he was just looking for the bathroom. I'm sure he was. But eventually, he confessed the whole straight marriage was a sham.
I had never been honest a day in my life. It was lie after lie after lie after lie.
This aspect of ex-gay conversion training is especially bad because not only does it make the queer person unhappy, it also ropes a spouse into the suffering, and often kids. And all that suffering is for nothing because none of this is based on anything. In the movie, the people running the camp are just some random weirdos with no qualifications that we ever see. Jamie Babbitt said that her backstory for the camp leader is she's motivated by anger that her husband was gay. And historically, ex-gay doctors were phonies too. Some might have really believed what they were doing, despite having no evidence, but others were just grifters.
The conservative Christian lobby always needs something they can really get their constituents riled up about and willing to give money. What can really get people riled up? Homosexuality.
One of my favorites was a con man named Albert Abrams. He claimed that he'd invented a device that could detect homosexuals by measuring radiation from their genitals.
Kind of a radar for gayness, or gay radar. It's called a homometer.
That device turned out to be a broken doorbell.
I didn't even know we had a doorbell.
Supposed experts in the 90s just made stuff up too. One of them, Christopher Doyle, claimed that his cures were based on research by a therapist. And he's right, it was done by a therapist. A massage therapist. Another ex-gay leader, Joseph Nicolosi, was asked about the basis of his techniques by a reporter, and he said, "I don't have time to actually research them." And Richard Cohen was kicked out of the American Counseling Association for multiple ethical lapses. Here he is on The Daily Show explaining all of his qualifications.
People who are living a gay life can choose to change and come out straight.
Thank you for setting the record straight, Doctor.
I'm not a doctor. I'm a certified sexual reorientation coach.
Well, you're a psychiatrist.
No, I'm not.
But you're licensed.
No.
So, of course, because none of this stuff is medical science, none of it works. In the film, we see that despite the treatments, Megan and another camper played by Clea fall in love. Other campers lust for each other too. There's even this very romantic shot of these guys holding hands, which if you look closely is filmed through an upside-down cutout of a gentleman's Greek opening. Eventually, one of the campers even gets fed up and tells them what they all are.
Congratulations, liars. You know who you are and you know who you want. Ain't nobody gonna change that.
He's right. It's all lies. There is a long record of supposedly cured homosexuals either admitting it didn't work or getting caught in a lie. Back in the 70s, two guys named Michael and Gary started an ex-gay group called Exodus International, and then a decade later, they announced they were leaving the organization because they'd fallen in love with each other. George Reekers, the one who said you should give your kids points for gender-conforming behavior, was photographed coming home from a vacation with a sidekick from rentboy.com. Reekers initially claimed he'd hired the man to carry his luggage, but according to the rent boy...
Lucian also says for the trip to Madrid and London, he was to give Reekers what Lucian called sexual massages every day.
I have to think that's going to cost him a few points. Ex-gays have had over 100 years to come up with evidence of some kind that what they're claiming actually works. The hypnosis, the monkey testicles, the disintegrator. But they've got nothing. Instead, every legitimate medical organization on Earth says the evidence is conclusive. This stuff doesn't work, and it's actively harmful. Now, it's true, some of the campers in the film are unhappy about being queer. But what they need is to meet other queer people, see there's nothing wrong with them, and that there's a great gay life ahead of them. And there's historical precedent for that too. Early sex researchers weren't all crackpots. In 1893, a sexologist named Magnus Hirschfeld wrote that sexual orientation was neither acquired through environmental factors or suggestions, nor extinguished through medical treatment or psychological conditioning. In other words, who you love is just part of your nature. There's nothing medicine can do to change it. And in 1914, Hirschfeld wrote that the best course of action for people with homosexual urges was simply to have gay sex. So that is the long, dark history of ex-gay cures. And while it's great that Jamie had a ton of research that she could use for But I'm a Cheerleader, it also presented a tough challenge. How do you take that very serious topic and make it into a teenage rom-com, a gay Clueless? As Jamie said,
I'd rather laugh at things than go into some serious emotion about it.
And that, folks, is Gen X. So, to tackle this problem, Jamie figured if the reality of the topic was too heavy, maybe they needed a little less reality. Early in the planning process, she took the production designer to a toy store.
And I said, see how all the girls' toys are pink and all the boys' toys are blue? Like, I want to do that in the movie.
Basically, to do what the Barbie movie did 2 decades later, create a world full of bright colors, plastic, where everything looks pretend, so it doesn't seem as menacing, at least not at first. And then, on top of that, she wanted to add a lot of campy references to the 1950s.
The 50s to me is like the epitome of kind of like bullshit, sexist, like male-female stuff.
For reference, she looked at Edward Scissorhands, how it seems like the 50s, but absurdly dialed up. And on top of that, one more source of inspiration was a 70s art film called Pink Narcissus.
Which is also like porn, gay porn, Barbie fantasy.
So the hope was that a bizarre blend of influences, Barbie plus Tim Burton plus campy gay porn, would give the audience a little more distance from the harsh reality. Like a fairy tale or like science fiction, make it feel like it's all pretend, so it's easier to let your guard down and laugh.
Obviously, the whole Exodus International sort of anti-gay crusade that's going on right now is pretty frightening. People's lives are at risk, and it's pretty tragic. But at the same time, I think the best way to get a message across is to make fun of it.
Also helping, the cast and crew had a blast making this film. There were plenty of tough days. At one point, a windstorm came through and knocked down the sets. After a night of partying, Natasha Lyonne arrived on set with a new tattoo that she wasn't sure how she got. Neighbors kept hassling them because they thought they were making a porn called But, with 2 T's, I'm a Cheerleader. But dealing with those problems brought everybody closer together. After filming, they'd all go to dinner together, then back to their hotel and hang out all night in Kathy Moriarty's room where she'd tell them stories about Hollywood and teach them to play poker. And during the day, Natasha made it her mission to keep everyone's spirits up. She recalled, "During shooting, I'd stand there with this giant smile on my face. My cheeks were like bleeding. And after every shot, I'd say, 'Best shot in the world,' and jump around." And you can really see the camaraderie in scenes with Natasha and her real-life friend, Clea Duvall. The characters start off hating each other.
What am I, contagious?
But over time, they find they have more in common than they thought. They confide in each other.
How'd you end up here?
I had this friend. I guess we just spent a little too much time together.
Until finally...
Do what you want.
You want me to do what I want?
I could care less.
What I really want?
Screw you!
Looking back, Clea said that during one of their flirting scenes, "I remember just feeling maybe the most grounded and the most present I'd ever felt in a scene before, in that moment with her." It's exactly the kind of enemies to lovers trope you'd want from a light, fun rom-com. And it all builds to a genuinely sweet climax. Just when it seems like the ex-gay camp has made it impossible for them to be together, Natasha's character pulls out the pom-poms for a great big romantic gesture.
1, 2, 3, 4, you're the one that I adore. 5, 6, 7, 8, don't run from me, 'cause this is fate.
And they ride off into the sunset. Well, into a sunset painted on the back of a pickup truck. And with the filming done, everyone could breathe a sigh of relief. But how would audiences like it? Well, after filming was done, they held a test screening at LA's Gay and Lesbian Center.
And we handed out all these questionnaires, and it was a little mixed, to be honest. So it was kind of a brutal night for me where I was like, oh shit, I have like a lot of work to do in the movie.
And that wouldn't even be the roughest reception. As they were getting ready for release, Jamie got word that the MPAA's ratings board had decided to rate the film NC-17.
And I was really shocked because in my mind, it was a G-rated movie.
That meant no admission to anyone under the age of 17.
And I feel like the most important teens to see it are teens that are in high school in like Wyoming or wherever, you know, that are just feeling like they're the only ones. And, you know, especially these kids that are sent to these homosexual rehabilitation camps. And those camps are very real.
After calling around, she was able to get someone from the MPAA on the phone.
And she called me back and she said, you know, I just want to let you know I really like the film. And I said, okay, well, thank you.
So what was the problem? Well, there was some suggestive dialogue.
And she said, well, that didn't bother me. It really just bothered me with the women.
All of the issues that the ratings board raised were about scenes where women express their sexuality.
And she said, well, honestly, it's really about women. And there's a line in there where it talks about a woman going down on another woman. And I know it's a joke, but it's really inappropriate for women to talk about stuff like that.
And I was really angry and really devastated, and I didn't understand why, because there's no nudity in the sex scene. But the really offensive thing, at the time that I submitted it to the ratings board, American Pie had just come out. I had seen the trailer a million times of Jason Biggs masturbating in an apple pie in the trailer.
The trailer for American Pie, which also featured Natasha Lyonne, had some very explicit shots. But according to the MPAA, they involved boys, so it was okay.
So I think, you know, at the time, there was a lot of sexism at the ratings board.
MPAA ratings are notoriously inconsistent, often much harsher for queer movies than straight. According to the board,
ratings board is populated by parents, normal human beings, neither gods nor fools.
But as Jamie pointed out,
well, what's really offensive about that is to say, for a rater to say, we're just going to rate these movies like an average American parent. Who is an average American parent? I'm an American parent. I'm a lesbian.
But at the end of the day, she wanted teenagers to be able to see the film. So she made the cuts, as annoying as it was. In the lead up to the release, the cast did some fun promotional interviews.
The message of the film is be gay, as far as I can tell. Or just be yourself, but preferably be gay. Because being gay is better.
And then, with the release set for summer of 2000, it was time to find out if it was all worth it. When But I'm a Cheerleader hit screens, the reaction can be summed up in this review from Ebert and Roper. From Ebert,
It's a very funny movie and something a little more, a satire with real bite to it.
And from Roper,
well, you say this movie has bite. I thought it had all the bite of an old man who's lost his dentures. I didn't laugh at any of this stuff.
The reaction was totally polarized.
It was very hated. It was either loved or hated.
Right.
So we never got like, yeah, it's okay. Like we got an F in Entertainment Weekly, which I don't think I'd ever even seen a review so bad. But I thought, well, an F is better than a C.
People either loved it or they hated it. And some of the harshest critics?
And then I got a really mean like reviews and from like older men and a lot of older gay men. And I think people were just offended by like a comedy with all the terrible things happening in the community. And also a comedy about something that is also horrible, which is conversion therapy, which still happens.
So for some audiences, the attempt to make it light and fun fell flat. But younger viewers had a different take, starting with the cast. Here's Joel Micheley, who played one of the campers.
Before I did this movie, I didn't know any gay and lesbian queer people. I'd never seen happy, healthy queer relationships. And on this movie, I met gay writers, gay producers, gay actors, gay directors. Like, it showed me that you could have a life and a good one and a family. And everyone in this movie became a part of my family.
And he wasn't alone. When the movie premiered at Sundance in heavily Mormon Utah,
Clea and I found out firsthand when we would have kind of like, especially young girls kind of like run up to us and be like, I just want to let you know, like, you really changed my life because of the movie. And,
just this much more seen, or like, maybe it's okay that I am who I am in this life is like, the whole reason why any of us even do this.
The fact that I get people coming up to me or sending me messages saying, that it helped them, through times when they felt suicidal, or helped them feel like they had a friend who was like them before they had a community. It's really powerful.
And the film's influence extended much further than anyone expected.
And then I met this really cool teacher who was teaching at an all-girls school in Saudi Arabia. And she said to me, But I'm a Cheerleader is like the most watched movie in the Saudi Arabian women's queer scene.
Now, although it found a wide audience, the box office returns were just so-so. To this day, Jamie says she has still never made any money from the film. But
I feel very privileged that the world brought us all together and that this movie got made. There's a million reasons it shouldn't have been made. There's a million reasons why it could have fallen apart. And the fact that it like squeaked through, the light gets through the cracks. So thank God.
And not only are many of the cast and crew still friends 25 years later, but Jamie Babbitt's now an acclaimed TV and movie director. She's directed episodes of Gilmore Girls, The L Word, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, A League of Their Own, and lots more. Plus, she and Natasha and Clea Duvall still work together on shows like Russian Doll and Poker Face. And then, what happened to all those real-life ex-gay programs? Well, when But I'm a Cheerleader came out, they were everywhere. But in the years that followed, a lot of them disappeared. Part of that was due to media exposure. When people found out what groups like Exodus International were really doing, nobody could support them.
When the Lisa Lean show came out, Exodus could no longer continue to promote the idea of change because that was a lie.
Then, in the mid-2000s, there was a wave of ex-gay leaders who came out, apologized, and dedicated themselves to healing the damage that they'd done.
Being able to move away from living hope and ex-gay teaching and admit that I was gay and that was actually like a good thing. For the first time, I started to feel like light and happy and like God loved me and liked me and it was just all fine. And I was fine.
Other groups closed because their leaders were caught in indelicate circumstances.
Lucian told me Rakers had asked him not to share his story with the media.
He just didn't want me to mention the massage aspect.
And in the 20-teens, a bunch of states passed laws prohibiting ex-gay treatment, likening it to medical fraud. And for a time, it looked like after more than a century, this stuff was finally going away. But in the last few years, religious groups have filed lawsuits in multiple states challenging the medical fraud laws. A recent investigation by the Trevor Project located ex-gay practitioners operating in 48 states, even ones where the treatments are prohibited. And now, there's a growing concern we could be looking at a new wave of phony treatments, junk science, and people sent to ex-gay camps. And there's one more reason to be concerned. In 2026, the Supreme Court will hear a case brought by a group of anti-gay lawyers challenging those state-by-state bans. They're claiming that ex-gay counseling is simply free speech, that it shouldn't be regulated like other medical treatment, even though they're presenting it as medical treatment. So by this time next year, all those old treatments might be coming back. Calling it a disease, shouting at pillows, blaming ghosts, recommending disintegrator rays. The stuff that looks too weird to possibly be real in But I'm a Cheerleader, but barely scratches the surface of how bizarre and harmful these places can truly be.
Dad! 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 Where were you?
Now, there is lots more to say about But I'm a Cheerleader, Natasha Lyonne, and the long history of ex-gay cures. I'm posting bonus videos over on Patreon with lots more stories about what happened to the weirdest ex-gay leaders, about Dante Bosco's first gay kiss, and about Natasha's lifelong friendship with Paul Rubens. There's hours of bonus videos. You can even sign up for a free trial so you can watch first and then decide if you want to stick around for more. That's at patreon.com/mattbaum. Huge thanks to Trevor at the channel Media Processing for help with the edit on this video. Check the card on the screen or in the description to see their channel, including a very fun video about the Barbie movie. Big thanks to everybody who helped me with research on this video, especially Peter at Wacko Media. And thanks to all the Patreon members who make all these videos and so much more possible. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some very important scientific research to get to.
This urine is great.
She has to participate in was photographed coming home with the... Well, but... And there's historical precedent for that, too. Early gay sex